Today, folks, we're going to take a look at factoring trinomials day 2. Today, our a value, this a value right here in the quadratic expression here, is going to have a number other than 1. In other words, we're going to let a be greater than 1. All right, well, right here, guys, is our do. You're going to be able to factor problems like that one today. Our Wicker no and do is right there. It is the same as what we had last class period. All right, so go ahead and pause this, get this down, and then we'll begin this lesson. Before we begin, let's do a little bit of reviewing. Okay, so here's a problem like what we had last class period, right here. Now, in factoring this question, this is what we came up with. It says x squared minus a 3x minus 4. Now, what I want you to remember here is when you tree this out, because this is a negative, our negatives are going to be on the left side. So, let's come up with all the factors of negative 18. So, let's see, I have negative 3 times 6, I have negative 6 times 3, I have negative 2 times 9, negative 9 times 2, and of course we have negative 1 times 18 and negative 18 times 1. But I think we can see which one it is right now. So in looking at this, I can see it's going to be this one right here because negative 6 plus 3 equals negative 3. And I had a negative 3 right there. So that means that our factors here are simply going to be, okay, do this here, put an x there, put an x there, and make sure you put it in the same order. In other words, we're going to put that negative 6 right there and put that positive 3 right there. All right, so let's look at this. So it's going to be minus a 6 plus a 3. Now, that there is the factors, and we can check it by multiplying it together, and it will give us what we started out with. Okay, well, enough review. Let's get on with new material. All right, folks, let's take a look at what happens when we have a number in front of the x. In other words, I have a coefficient of x. Now, first of all, let's think here a second. The coefficients of the x squared term right here, it turns out that coefficient will be the product of the coefficients of the x term. See this 6? See 2 times 3 makes this 6. Okay. Also remember, like yesterday, the constant term in the trinomial right here is the product of the constants in the binomials, as you can see right there. All right, now let's use this idea and move on to our first problem. When you multiply, there's a couple ways we could do it. We could use what's known as the guess and check method, or some people call it the trial and error method. Now, if you were to factor this problem right here using the guess and check, this is what your work will look like. Looks like this. You're going to trial and error it, guess and check it, come up with all the different possibilities as I've shown here. Then you're going to have to do all the products of the binomials, and you get it, and you're going to say, okay, which one of these matches up with this one that we started with? And it turns out that this one does right here. Well, you know what? And you have to go through all this work to find the factors of this. Well, you know what? That is a lot of work. So instead of using the guess and check method, and by the way, that's not all the possibilities. There are actually 12 different possibilities here. So instead of doing this, I'm going to show you an easier method. So in class, make sure you give me a high five because I'm sure you'll be happy that we're not going to have to work out 12 different problems just to come up and factor this one quadratic. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Like we did yesterday, I need the factors of 3. Well, now notice I have a plus here and I have a plus there. Those same rules apply. So it's going to be both positive. So 1 times 3, 3 times 1. Now, I'm going to look over here at the 6 and we're going to tree that out as well. I'm going to find a factor tree of that as well. So that's going to be 2 times 3, 3 times 2, 1 times 6, 6 times 1. Now, hang with me really closely here. Now, I'm going to label these. These right here, these on this side, and these here are going to be considered the outsides. Why? Because they're on the outside of this group of 4 here. Okay, so I'm going to label these with a little O, because this is going to be the outsides. Now, this is going to be the insides right there. So I'm going to label these I. Now you may ask, why are they the inside? Well, because these here are in the inside of these four. So think of these as columns. These are the outside columns. These are the inside columns. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to multiply the outsides together. So we're going to multiply the outsides, and I'm going to multiply the insides together. So we find the product of the outsides, find the product of the insides, and add it up. The ones that give us the product of the outside plus the product of the insides, the ones that give us a negative 11, those are the factors that work. Okay, so let's see if we can look at this now. So for starters, I'm going to take the first one here. So I'm going to take 2 times 3, and then I'm going to take 3 times 1. And we're going to see if that comes up with 11. If it is, those are combinations that work. So let's multiply. So 2 times 3 plus, those are the products of the outside, 3 times 1. That gives us 6 plus 3, which is 9. Is that 11? No, it's not. Okay, so I know it's not going to be that choice. All right, so now let's try this choice here with this choice down here. Okay, so here we go. We're going to multiply the outsides. I'm going to multiply 2 times 1, and then I'm going to multiply 3 times 3. So we're going to go 2 times 1, those are the product of the outsides, plus the product of the insides, which is 3 times 3, and that gives us 2 plus 9, which is 11. Eureka! Yes, that's what I wanted. That means this combination right here is the combination that I will use for putting it in my trinomial. Okay, or in my two sets of factors of my trinomial. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to draw this, the two binomials there. I'm going to put an x here and an x there. Why? Because that's an x squared, and the x squared means that's x and x. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I want you to remember here, see this 2 and 3 came from the 6. So that means this 2 and 3 has to go in front of the coefficients for each binomial. See how the order is? This 2 is first, so I'm going to put it right there first. This 3 is second, so I'm going to put it right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to put a 2 there and a 3 there. Now, look over here. I have 3 and 1. And remember, these are the products that make up the constant. These are also going to be put in the binomials there and there. Now, because it's a plus 3 and a plus 1, I'm going to say plus 3 plus 1. Now, we are done. We could multiply that out to check, because it does say check. So good idea at this point. Let's go ahead and check it. So let's go down just a tad bit here. Let me see if I can okay, let's move this up just a teeny bit here, and let's multiply this out. So here I'm going to go 2x times 3x, which gives us 6x to the second. 2x times 1 gives us plus 2x. 3 times 3x gives us plus a 9x, and 3 times 1 gives us 3. And that there will give us, okay, it's going to give us 6x to the second plus 2x plus 9x gives us 11x plus 3. Now, let's check up here to see if that's what we originally had. So let me pull this down a little bit. Is that what we originally had? Yep, that's it. So what does that tell me? That tells me that these truly are the factors of this polynomial right there. All right, guys. There's our first one. Let's go try another. Okay, for this one we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to tree this out. The factors of 3 are 1 times 3, 3 times 1. Factors of 16 are 4 times 4. Oh, wait a second here. Look at this. That's plus, but that's minus. So remember, when this is plus, I look here and that's the signs of both of them. So this is going to be a negative 4 and a negative 4. Okay, so then negative 2 times negative 8, and then negative 8 times negative 2, and negative 1 times negative 16, and negative 16 times negative 1. All right, now let's do the product of the outsides plus the products of the insides here. So now again, let's label this up here. So these are that's my outside columns. These are my inside columns. And I'm going to start by taking a look at 1 and 3 and -4 and -4. So I have, so we start with outsides, 1 times -4. Okay, so 1 times -4 plus, and now we're going to do the insides, 3 times -4. So I get 3 times -4. So that gives me, let's see, right here, this gives me -4 plus -12, which gives me -16. Hey, I got it again, first try. That tells me that these factors right there are the factors that are going to work. All right, so let's go ahead and lay them in our two binomials. So set it up just like what I have, and then remember, this 1 and 3 is the product of the x squareds, so it's going to be the coefficients of the x squared, so they're going to be the coefficients of the x's. So that means I'm going to put a 1 here and 3 there. Make sure you maintain that same order. And then over here I'm going to do the same thing. This -4 is going to come down and go here. So let's put it there, -4. And this -4 is going to go right over there. So I'm going to put that -4. And now we're ready to check to see if we've gotten it right. So let's check it out. So I have 3x to the second. Then I have -4x minus 12x plus 16, which is 3x squared minus a 16x plus a 16. It checks. So that means that this right there are my binomial factors of that polynomial. Okay, good job. All right, let's go look at a couple more. In this scenario, notice what I have here. This time, I have a negative for my constant. And remember, when I have a negative for my constant, that means my factors here, my negative is always going to be on the left side, right here. Okay, so it's going to be -2 times 2, -4 times 1, -1 times 4. Over here, just 1 times 3, 3 times 1. All right, now let's go ahead. Remember, I want an 11. So let's do the products and see what we can come up with here on this one. Okay, so we have the product of the outsides plus the product of the insides. So let's start with doing this one right here, these two right here. So we have 1 times 2, and then I'm going to put plus, and then 3 times a -2. Now notice this time I didn't label. I could if I wanted. These are the outsides. These are the insides, and I encourage you to label those so that you don't forget, which is the outside, which is the inside. Okay, so this is going to be 2 plus a -6, which is -4. So that's not it. Okay, so now let's go to the next one. So let's try this one and this one and see what we're going to do right here. Okay, so we have 1 times 1 plus 3 times a -4. Now 1 times 1 is 1, plus 3 times -4 is -12. That makes it a -11. That's not it. Boy, you know what? That is really close to that +11. Now, when it's really close to the +11, that means that, you know what? This combination doesn't work. But I bet you if I were to switch around this 1 and 3 right here, and we were to use this combination right here, and also switch around the -4 and the 1, it might work. So when this one just is off by a negative, then go to the next one so that's just, kind of opposite signs there. Okay, so let's try that one. So that one there is going to be 3 times 4 plus 1 times -1. Okay, everybody see what I did? Did the outsides 3 times 4 plus, and the insides 1 times -1. All right, and that gives us 12 plus a -1, which is 11. Yay, I got it. It checks. Okay, so let's go ahead and drop these in. So I'm going to do this, put our x's right here, and remember, let's circle these. And guys, I encourage you, circle the ones that work. Now, do it in the same exact order. So this 3 goes there. So put that 3 there. Okay, This 1 goes over here, because remember this is the product of the coefficients of the x squared. That means the 3 and 1 are the product of the x's. Okay, so I'm going to put the 1 right here, and then this negative 1 and 4, I'm going to put the negative 1 there and the 4 right there. So negative 1 plus 4. Now, for time's sake, I'm not going to check it. I'm going to tell you it does work. I encourage you to check it to make sure that it does work, but for time's sakes, I'm going to just move on to the next one. For this problem here, notice I have the negative here, but I have the negative there. Turns out I handle it the same as I did the last problem. Because of that negative 4, that means it's going to be negative here, so I'm going to go negative 2 times 2, negative 1 times 4, and negative 4 times 1. Now that almost looks like a negative, so let me make sure it's a times there. Okay, on this side, I'm going to put 2 times 2, and 1 times 4, and 4 times 1. Now, we're going to do, notice this number is pretty big, so I'm going to think about it a second. And I'm going to think that, you know what, I'm going to just kind of glance at these, and let's see if we can kind of figure it out. If I look here, that gives me 4. This here gives me negative 4. That's going to go to 0. So you can think through some of these. This one here, and this one here, that gives me 8 minus 2. Nope, that's not going to be negative 15. And if I go here, 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, that's going to give me a negative 6. Not it. Okay? Now, instead of trying all these, let's just kind of use our head a little bit. What if I were to try this set right here? Because notice, 1 times 1 is 1, and 4 times negative 4 is negative 16, and 1 minus 16 is, that's it, negative 15. Okay, now I hope you saw the way I kind of think through these, so I'm not writing everything down. As you do a few of these, they're going to become really evident and very easy to see. All right, so let's just go ahead and quickly put these in place. So remember, this 1 and 4 goes in as the coefficients of the x. So I'm going to put 1 and 4. And these products of the constants are going in the same order, negative 4 and positive 1 right there. So negative 4 and plus a 1. And again, that does work. For time's sake, you go ahead and check it by multiplying it. Myself, I'm going to just run on to the next question. We have one more example that we're going to work, and that's going to give it a wrap here. So, okay, let's go to the next example. In our final example, this is what I want you to see. We have a negative in front of all these. Actually, guys, I'm concerned about this negative right there. Anytime you have a negative stuck out front, like what I have right there, what we can do is factor that negative out. Now, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put a negative 1 here, and I'm going to put parentheses like this, and I'm just going to rewrite the polynomial, but I have to change, because I factored in negative, I'm going to change the sign inside of all of them. So if they're minus, as in this case, they turn to plus. If they just happen to be a plus, it would go to a minus. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be looking like that. Now, at this point, we're just going to factor as what we've done before. So 1 times 2, 2 times 1. Over here, 1 times 3, 3 times 1. Notice everything's positive. Why? Because this is positive and that's positive. Now, I want to come up with a 5. So let's see. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, guess what? That's our factors right there. So let's bring it down. Now, I'm going to put the negative 1 outside. Then I'm going to draw my two binomials. Put an x here and an x there. Now, remember, this 1 and 2 right there are the coefficients of x squared, so it's going to be the coefficients of the x, so 1 and 2. Make sure it's in that same order. And then, of course, right over here, the 1 and the 3 is going to go plus 1 and plus 3. And ta-da, there it is. Now, I encourage you again, for time's sake, I'm not going to check it, but I encourage you to check it to make sure you've done it right. Okay, guys, here's the problems that we're going to be working here. We're going to do 2 to 24 even, and then there's 55 to 65 and 68. All right, so If you want to use this to work your problems off of, you can go ahead, just pause it, work these problems, and you know what? You're going to need to see these problems down below, so I will pull this up, and then you can pause it and see the rest of those as well. All right, guys, I will see you in class.